So here guys, I tried using Alice again because I noticed that even though she didn't get any buffs, she somehow feels stronger after the update. I just recorded the replay here because I forgot to record the actual game, and my phone also lags a bit when I'm recording. I hope that's okay with you, for this game only. So yeah, I was the jungler here, and if you noticed my rotation, I started with the orange buff and the 2 green jungle creeps on the right side. I did that because Alice doesn't really need the purple buff yet if she's not level 4, and I also wanted to still have the purple buff available by the time the turtle spawns since I delayed taking it. This is one thing you can do if your hero depends on the purple buff and you want to contest the turtle. So yeah, I immediately took the turtle while the enemy jungler was still buffing, and if you can see, what I did was effective. Our lineup in this game was good because Matilda and Alice are a really solid combo. You can dive into the enemy and still get out because of Matilda's second skill. And against Fredrin, Alice really has the advantage. Alice really likes facing heroes without mobility. Even though Fredrin has a lot of crowd control, Alice doesn't really mind it because of her ultimate. It feels good to use Alice again because she was the first hero I created content for. I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers back when I was making content about her. And now that I've reached over 20k subscribers, I get to use her again. That's almost half a year. She suddenly disappeared from the meta when Clock of Destiny was adjusted. Its mana was reduced, and it was changed to give cooldown reduction. I used to play her in the gold lane with a full magic build. But now, a hybrid build works better for her. Though I'm not sure if full magic build is still good when you're in the gold lane. I think I might try it next time. But yeah, your emblem and item build for Alice really depends on your lane, because she's one of those heroes that can play almost any role, maybe except roamer. If you're a jungler, the mage emblem is fine since you have the purple buff. But if not, I think you might need to use the common emblem so your mana doesn't drain too fast. Though I think her best role right now is really as a jungler, and it's much better if she's paired with a support like Matilda or Florin, as long as you're on a hybrid build. I'll show you my full build later. Alice is one of those heroes whose power almost doubles just because of the purple buff like Zushin. If you give her the purple buff, she can provide unlimited CC, and her damage becomes even more painful now. Basically, heroes that consume a lot of mana or energy benefit a lot from it. Alice would also be really solid in other lanes if your jungler would give you the purple buff in the late game. But if you're a solo player, it's rare to have a teammate like that, so it's really better for her to be the jungler. Though I'll make another video trying Alice in other lanes and let's see if she's still effective. The reason I said that a support type roamer suits her more is because she needs it more. Alice already has enough tankiness and crowd control to face enemies. She just needs someone to support her. Though sometimes she might need another front line, and my teammate here was solid because our EXP laner who used Badang also went for a tank build, which is really important. Your EXP laner needs to be tanky if your roamer is a support, so there's someone to frontline against the enemy. This is one good thing you can do when you have a Matilda with you. You dive in using your first skill, then get out using Matilda's second skill if you feel like you can't handle it, or the situation looks risky. Though sometimes your teammates will take the guiding wind even if they don't need it, and it will ruin all your plans. Here's my item and emblem build for her. Almost all top global Alice players use this kind of build, and I think it's really the best for her. Especially the first 3 items. Alice really needs those. The enemy had a Kimmy in the mid lane, and what I noticed about Kimmy is that she's actually better in mid lane, and her damage is really painful during the early to mid game. But when it gets to the late game, her damage doesn't seem enough anymore. I mean, she becomes easier to kill because enemies also hurt more by then, and she's on a full magic build, so she ends up dying before she can even kill anyone. But during the early to mid game, she's super strong. Even with just one item, she already deals a lot of damage. So here, we were already clearly ahead, and the bigger problem for the enemy was that all of our heroes were late game scalers. So if you get crushed in the early game by late game heroes, you already know your chances of winning are very low in that kind of situation. At that point, you'll just be relying on luck, like if the enemies make a mistake. Though one of the things that almost made us lose was our marksman. When the marksman throws, the enemy team can recover really quickly. Just watch what Moskov does. He engages the enemies alone twice, just because his ultimate hit someone. Just look at the map, guys. Who in their right mind would dive in alone in that kind of situation, especially when using a marksman? He acts like he's some tough guy or super strong. I think he thought he was a pro player who could easily outplay the enemies all by himself. He wasn't satisfied with just one, so he went for another one. Maybe he just wanted to make the match more exciting because he was getting bored, thinking he was already crushing the enemies too easily. The enemies struggled with the Alice and Matilda combo. I think mainly because they didn't have burst damage. They couldn't burst down Alice, especially with Matilda around. Also, Estes didn't do much in this game. His healing was pretty useless, like they needed to group up to maximize his heal, but that's exactly what our heroes wanted, especially Alice, who loves it when the enemies are clumped together. Not only does it make the healing stronger, but it also makes Alice's second skill almost unlimited. At this point, we just went for the Lord. I think we only needed one more Lord to finish the game. Meanwhile, Moskov had been so excited to end the match, he kept diving in alone to face the enemies because he was so eager. I just gave the purple buff to Sea Lion here because I saw on the map that the enemy's purple buff was about to spawn, so I decided to take that instead. And Moskov really loved diving in alone, but luckily my teammates came to the rescue. Because if Moskov died, we might not have been able to finish the game since he was our only hope. I ended up zoning out the two enemies here, but Matilda and Badang went a bit too far and ended up dying. Luckily, we still managed to finish the game. In situations like this, if you can zone out two enemies, it's already good because the remaining 3 enemies can't defend the base, especially with the Lord and minions already in the base. So I'll also add in this video the weird buff that Kaja got. Moonton labeled it as a buff. But what do you think? It feels more like an adjustment, since there were 2 trade-offs with the cooldown reduction on his first skill. His max stacks were reduced, and the effects per stack were also lessened. So it's really just an adjustment, if not a nerf. A lot of people weren't happy with what Moonton did to Kaja, but I think more players are actually happy, especially assassin users, since Kaja is a really solid counter against assassins. That might also be the reason why Moonton doesn't want to give Kaja a decent buff, mainly because they don't want too many strong, hard counters to assassins. In this game, I used him in the EXP lane because someone in the comments challenged me to use Kaja there and get MVP. That's why I went with a mage build, to clear minion waves faster. He's really hard to use right now, but I think with just a small buff, he could easily return to the meta because his ultimate is still super solid and can easily pull enemies toward your teammates. He can also counter a lot of skills. His passive is also a big deal since it reduces enemy damage by percentage, which is especially useful now with so many strong damage-dealing heroes. I feel like even just increasing the range of his ultimate would make him more viable. Right now, the range is so short that you really need to use Flicker just to catch enemies, and sometimes even with Flicker, you can still miss your ult because of how short the range is. That often happens especially when you're up against high mobility enemies, since their dash can cancel out your Flicker timing. I feel like what Moonton should have done was reduce the max stacks of his passive, but increase the effects instead of lowering them, because it doesn't really make sense, right? They said Kaja felt weak because it was too hard to build stacks on him. But then that's exactly what they made worse. For just a 1.5 second cooldown reduction of his first skill in the late game, they nerfed his passive. It doesn't really make sense, especially since cooldown reduction is something you can easily get from items. They should have just reduced the cooldown of his first skill and left the passive alone.